Welcome to the channel and the third series in a sequence of games where I am sharing my learning experience with people who want to learn EU5. Now, the first series was we played Holland, which is just up here for anyone who's not sure where it is, where we basically played, I think, up past the Black Death to learn the basics of the game. The second series we played Hungary, with very much the focus on learning the economy and building up the RGOs, basically making a profitable kingdom. And that series came to a little bit of a premature end due to the fact, if we look down in the bottom right hand corner here, you'll see that we are now on version 1.010 Lepanto, which is quite a big major update, but it does represent a point in Paradox's development where they've kind of plateaued their changes. So hopefully we're going to have a period now where there's going to be no more patches and other bits kind of disturbing the gameplay, because one of the problems I have started to encounter in this journey of learning the game, and this is something, if you are just coming to learn the game, be aware that a lot of the pre-release gameplay is now technically out of date, and there's also some early tutorials where I won't go as far as saying that the information is wrong. It's just that the actual gameplay and some of the hints and tips have been superseded and are no longer relevant. And this has always been a problem with Paradox games, that especially when they've been out for more than a year, when someone comes along to learn, it can be a bit difficult to find relevant tutorials and information about the state of the game at the time of learning, especially when there's been a couple of DLCs, because often the tutorials refer to the game when it was first released, not the state when it actually is. That out the way, let's just move on and talk about what we're going to be doing in this series. Because in this series, the focus is now going to move away from trying to learn the actual mechanics and to a point where I'm going to start making my own mistakes. So I'm going to start going my own way now, developing my own game style. We're going to be a bit more adventurous with some of the game mechanics. There's particularly one which I'll be talking about once we actually get onto the game map, and that is values, because I've done a little bit more research on that, and for the previous two series I just ignored them completely because they didn't make sense and I didn't understand what the advantages and disadvantages are. It seems that setting up the right values throughout the game can make a very big difference to how the game actually flows, but I will talk a little bit more about that later on. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to go into the game rules. I am going to switch on missions, and what I'm actually going to do is change to every task rewards, not because I feel that I need them, but purely out of curiosity is probably the best way to explain that, just to see what actually gets. So if any of you are just coming in to learn, hopefully this series will show the advantage of actually doing those missions. So as I said, we're going to be playing Castile, simply because Castile is a game where you can mix learning the economy with diplomacy, and more so, this is probably a country you can play where you can get into a little bit of aggressive wars. Now, again, for reference, for anyone who's just coming in and wants to learn how to play, now if I go back to here and then I come back to new game, there is this option here. It says play recommended country. This is the easier option, and if you're completely new, this is the option I would strongly recommend that you go for. But I'm playing with select any country. Castile is one of the recommended countries for anyone who wants to learn the game. So the only difference is that I'm gone in with the normal one because I just don't want to go through the walkthrough again and all that. If you want to see the walkthrough, I would recommend watching the first two parts of my Holland series, where I go through that in quite detail. Anyway, so we're going to play Castile. You can see here we got a bit of an overview of what actually in Castile, and we're playing King Alfonso the 11th, the Avenger. He's 25. He's got some pretty good stats. He's got 69 stability, 58 so diplomacy, and 80 military. So he's a fairly good leader of the country. You can see the primary culture is Castilian, primary religion is Catholicism. If you can see by the highlight here that when you're first learning the game, you're literally going to be playing Catholic all the time. We've got 244 locations. We've got a fairly big population of 5.4 million. We got a pretty good tax base spread over that whole area there. And we've got, and more importantly, we've now got a pretty good army here of 55,000 levies and a couple and 200 regulars. So we're actually starting with a regular army. And you can see we've actually also got 14 ships, which we're going to be using quite a lot, because one thing about Castile is that we got a big coastline, so therefore we're going to be there's going to be a bit more focus on the navy. And then what I'll show very quickly, but I'm not going to go through it. We've got a whole set. Oh, it's the description, so no, it's content. That's it. What we've got here is all sorts of different events and specializations which give us individual bonuses. You can see a lot of this is related to research. As I say, I don't really want to go through all that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to press play, and I'll see you actually on the game map. So here we are on the map. You can see the game starts automatically paused. We're starting on the 1st of April 1337. We've got a whole list of things that need to be set up. First thing I want to do is go up and here, and we're going to take a look at the starting advice for Castile. This starting advice is normally only available for the 6 countries which are for learning there. You see, we've also got the option here to say start with the learning walkthrough, which I've already previously mentioned. It says here, as the dominant power in the region, the Crown of Castile stands on a privileged ground for a unifying Iberia under one throne. However, our administration is already stretched thin, and our control of the south is so low it barely contributes to our balance. It would be wise to consolidate our control over the current territory before we embark on further conquests. Now here it says build roads to the capital. Our capital at the moment is here in the north. I've got a plan for what I want to do based on the changes that were introduced as part of the 1.010 update. Now, I'm going to be completely upfront. This plan is hypothetical, but this is all part of the learning process. You've got to try things and see if it works. If it doesn't work, then you just go back. And that's exactly what's going to happen with this series. If what I plan to do goes wrong, I'll just come back and we'll start again and take a slightly more kind of orthodox method. By orthodox, I'm talking about the ways that are often suggested in tutorials. It says subjugate Granada. It says even if you're not in a position to own the land effectively, you could make Granada our subject that will rule the land on behalf and pay monthly tribute to our treasury. We can consider annexing it once our infrastructure and technology have developed enough to allow us owning the land directly. And then it's got down here plus ultra, which is a reason why Castile is the third country on my list to learn, because this is the one that now opens up exploration. So to just give you kind of reference for that, Granada's down here. It's what you could call a traditional part of what eventually would become Spain. You can also see there's a small enclave from Morocco in here. And this is effectively what's left of what was a major, almost Islamic, completely Islamic country that was the peninsula of Iberia. But of course, by 1337, most of that Islamic influence has been driven out. But you can actually see some of the Islamic cultural influences that still affect Spain today. Anyway, the other thing is that down here we got the Canary Isles, and I think this is the Azores, though it won't tell us because this is unexplored land. So if we get up far enough through the campaign, we might be able to get out and actually start doing the exploration part of the game. And of course, if we get really adventurous, we can come out here into Terra Incognito and find the Americas. But that is going to be a very long way in the future. Castile is a powerful country. Now, one of the key things that makes Castile a bit more complicated to learn, and this is why I would not recommend this for a first playthrough, despite the fact that many tutorials say that Castile is the best country to start with. One of those is, if we come down to the map mode here and show you here, Castile has 2 markets, the Seville market in the south and the Burgos market. So to really be able to play Castile, you've got to have an understanding of the market relationship. also, and how they actually interact with each other in order to get a strong economy. I will be talking about that as we go through. And I think the other thing I will show you very, very briefly. At the moment, our capital is up here and our actual market center is there. That's quite important, but we will be talking about that later on. The other thing I will show you very, very quickly, although I won't talk in great detail, is the control. Now, in EU5, control is everything. If you want to make money, you want to have big armies, everything, you need to get the best possible control. And you can see at the moment, because the capital's in the north, or the control's in the north. So down here, even though we've got another market, so if we flip back to the market, this Seville market is quite weak because all the money at the moment is in the north, but we will be flipping that around for a reason which I will explain. And of course, what we also got is enemies to the south. Granada is probably not a big problem, but one of our main areas of concern is going to be Aragon and Navarre. Navarre there, because of course we got the French lurking up here, who hopefully we're going to make an ally. Many players, when they play Castile, seem to be obsessed with taking Portugal. My approach is that we're going to try and get Portugal on our side, and so that we got a kind of traditional union which exists today. I mean, the relationship to Spain and Portugal is it's been mixed in the past, but it is quite strong. But what I would like to do is come across and take and integrate this into Castile along with the provinces down the bottom. So that's an overview of where we are now. The first thing I want to do is, we've got a reminder up here. It says start the mission tree. I'm going to go and start the mission before I forget, and we're going to go political simply because you get some very easy, quick wins by doing that. Because you see, we go in here, we can create a cabinet, head of cabinet, enact government reforms, meritocratic, royal authority, high era, increased efficiency. So we could get some quick wins from actually looking at that. Now, before we get started, I'm going to actually talk about values. Now, if you're not sure where values are, they're here. And if you've been following my series, you'll be aware that I'm kind of basically just ignored them completely. But in this series, we are going to start taking them seriously. I have done some research on this. And what I'm going to be talking about now is based on various videos, but there's one video which if you want to learn about values and how to really use them to your advantage, I would strongly recommend watching this video. And it's Slide Your Values to Maximum Power by Guthuk UK. Now, there will be a link in the video description if you actually want to go and check that video out. I'll be completely upfront. That video is the first time someone actually didn't just talk about what the values were, but they actually gave us a pointer of why you want certain types of these values min-maxed over, and also, more importantly, how you can actually go about doing it. And I think that is quite important. Now, I'm not going to go through everything that was discussed in the video, but what I am going to do is try and show my initial strategy. But one thing I do want to talk about is this value here, because this is something that's confused me when I've been looking at these in the past, simply because I couldn't work out what's actually going on. The way actually the values work is that you've got the change here. So if you actually see the change in the center, which is 0.18, there is an option within the cabinet where you can push towards decentralization, centralization, whatever you want, but you can only push 10 times, or is it 100 times, two decimal points. You can only push 100 times more than what your actual rate of change actually is, and that's this number down here. So if you wanted to push in that, the furthest you can get is 18.5 towards decentralization. As far as I can tell, the only way you can really push these to the maximum is by actually manipulating these values down here. And you can see what this actually does, and it actually works like that way. So what you've got to do is come up with schemes to actually do this, and you can see them down here. It says average development in the country, control in the country. Then what we've got here, these are privileges, fortification licenses, monetary builds. And then the other thing you can get is policies, which you can get by passing laws. So you really need to use the attributes or the privileges that you grant to your estates to manipulate the area of what you actually want to do. Without getting too much into the weeds, I'm just going to talk about what the recommendations that I've managed to gather. Now, one of the biggest changes is that all the early tutorials said that you had to go full out towards centralization. Now, that has been changed with the recent patches. There's a kind of argument now that you want to move towards decentralization, because what that does is give you loyalty of subjects, because the way that you actually expand using combat is by making vassals. Because back to that picture of the control I got, it says there's no point conquering a land if you can't control it. So you use vassals. So going to decentralization in the early game makes sense. But once you get to the mid to late game, where you may have a mature economy, but you're then operating on building that economy up and defending yourself, that's when you need to drift back towards centralization. So that is a kind of variable one through the game. And I think this is something that I learned from the video that I mentioned, is that I was approaching the values from the point of view that you set these values up for the whole game. But except for certain sliders, what you do is you manipulate where you want to go according to the age that you're actually traveling through. Now, the next one down is traditionalist and innovative. And the recommendation is that you try and get to 100% innovative from the beginning of the game. The reason for that is embrace institutions. Because if you go traditionalist, you end up with a plus 200% cost to embracing institutions, and that will really damage your game in the late game. So you want to move towards initiative. Now, the next one down is a bit more about your own preferred gameplay, but the general recommendation is, especially in the early game, is that you go spiritualist. What this does is it gives you more potential to get some stability by an indirect route, as far as I can tell, but don't quote me on that. The next one down is aristocracy. This aristocracy, again, is recommended, although you may want to change it later on. The reason for this is that if you look at the top, it says it gives you more nobles per 10,000 population, and it's nobles that actually give you legitimacy. So the more nobles you've got, the more legitimacy you get. So spiritualism is probably one for the early game, and not spiritualism, sorry, aristocracy. Now, the next one down is serfdom against free subjects. It seems a common newbie mistake is the fact that people go for free subjects to get the pop promotion speed, but the smarter players actually move towards serfdom. The reason that is that it can because of the raw materials output and supply limits, you can actually make more money with it. But to be honest, I suppose in the early game, if you drift towards free subjects and get a little bit of boost to pop promotion speed, it's not a great loss, I suppose is probably the correct way of saying it. Next one is whether you go belligerent or conciliatory. I think basically you can go any way you want with this. I don't think which way you go actually makes that much difference, as impression I get from the general conversations about it. I think the only real one is if you go belligerent, you can see there you get plus 33% casus belli curation speed, and as you can say here, opinion impact on shared borders could be something on that. I don't know if that's actually a magnifier. Now, the next one is quality against quantity. Again, I don't think this is one of the more important sliders. I think you can go either way you want, I think, depending on your play style. Next one is offensive against defensive. Now, there is a argument that being defensive gives you a few more buffs, which might actually help with relate to defensive strategies. But it's very much your play style. The land against naval depends on your country. Like when I played Hungary, it had to be land. With Castile, like the England, we're going to be going full on naval, because we need to get the kind of the access to our lands through the water all the way around the country. So that is the next one. Capital economy against traditional economy. The general recommendation is that you go for traditional economy. You can see where we've actually got now. It's quite high because this gives you more food production and raw materials and population capacity for the early game. But as the game progresses and you get towards the late game, what you want to do is possibly drift more back towards the capital economy to get the production in efficiency and the building cost. Although there is an argument that you can go, if you go for capital, you get that reduced building costs, but it's only 10%, therefore it's marginal in the sense. Now we get to individualism and communalism. Now, the video I watched, the commentator was completely unapologetic on this one. They were saying that the most powerful value in the game, and the one that you want to get to 100% as fast as possible, is communalism. And the reason for that is that if you come up to here, it's the ability to revoke privileges. Now, for anyone who who's completely new to the game, privileges are what you give to your estates. But the smart way to play is that what you do is you manipulate those privileges over the course of the game. And actually revoking privileges are incredibly expensive. So if you can get this to 100%, so you get that 50% reduction and keep it there throughout the game, it allows you to manipulate your estates and then in turn that your economy over time. And the general recommendation is that we want to try and get to 100% communalism as fast as possible. And you can see at the moment we've got our drift rate is at the moment we got 0.15, and that means that even if we push this, we could only get to 15 communalism, which is not very big. But the strategy that's recommended is that you go for communalism first, then you push for being the innovative at the second, and then after that you can just choose whatever way you want to go. So hopefully that makes sense. And apologies that I might have whittled on a little bit longer, which is going to make this introduction even longer. But I feel that that's something that's quite important that I needed to cover. Now, we're now going to go through the setup process. And I'll be completely upfront. I am going to be working from a list of things to do. And again, if you're new to the game, I would strongly recommend this. Once you've decided on what country you want to do, is have a think and then write down the things you need to do before you actually unpause the game. So the next thing we're going to do is just start looking at our royal family and just do some general setup. We're going to come in here, and now the first thing I want to do, because we've got a standing army here, we're going to appoint our king as a general to the army. Appoint it as general, yep. Why can't I? Maybe I point as. It should be easier to do it the other way. I don't know why I was actually doing it that way. It's easier to do it that way, to be honest. Now, the reason I'm appointing the king to the army is that when you've got the king in charge of the army, and technically because he's in this tiny little army here, he is now in complete control of the army. And what that will do is, if we come to government and we go to country and we go to estates, we'll come here. What that will do is increase our crown power here. Change reform, 20 legitimacy. We've only got 29. It's going to be a bit. I would really like to change that. Anyway, so let's get back to our king. We've got a whole load of children. So unlike the Hungary campaign, it looks like this guy's good at producing sons. They're in Seville. They're in Seville. They're in Seville. Why is this heir here? One thing I have noticed with the way the game plays is when you start the game and you've got these characters, the game actually seems to just point them to almost random locations, and rather than actually in their actual where you would say the capital is. But we've got a nice selection of sons here. So as these come of age, we'll be able to start building up the dynasty. I think that's quite nice. So next thing we're going to do is we're going start working through the mission. So we're going to appoint the cabinet. Ideally, I would like, if possible, to have had royal members in here, but it looks like we're not. So we got a burgher, we've got the priest, and we're going to appoint the priest in there. And let's have a look. Go back to country estates. So at the moment, I think maybe making the burgers a little bit more powerful could be useful. So we could do that. So if we go, go back to the cabinet. I think when you appoint these, it's not always the most powerful person. I think maybe we'll give this guy here. It's been assigned the cabinet. Get rid of you. And we lose 5 legitimacy. How old are you? You're 34. Promote to head of cabinet. It's going to cost us some money, but it's going to be okay. Promote him to the head of cabinet. If I let the game run very, very briefly. Oh, wow, got a mark. Okay, so it's not, the mission isn't triggered yet. Well, I'll have a quick look at the mission and see if it actually has triggered. At least 2. Oh, we've got to put cabinet actions in. Well, we're not going to do that just yet because I haven't made up my mind what we're actually going to do. So we'll worry about that later on. So we've set our cabinet up. Our values. We've put the army there. Now, the next thing we need to do is we'll follow this up here. We've got to choose our rivals. Now, we've already got Morocco, who's our rival, and I think, well, Aragon is certainly going to be a rival. And, well, I don't want to make Portugal a rival. There's no point making Granada a rival because they probably hate us anyway. And therefore, it's going to be a waste. So we'll make these guys a rival. I think that's a fairly standard thing we're going to do. What I would like to do, how many, we got 3 diplomats. So, whoops. So, see if we could, I would like to get an alliance. Oh yeah, go. What I will say is that I did 3 starts and 2 out of 3 I did get the alliance. What I would like to do is I'd like to think what's our diplomatic capability? France doesn't really like us. I'd like to get France on side, so I think what we'll do is improve opinion with we got. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hold off doing anything else just at the moment because again I don't want to drain all my diplomatic capability out because I've got my plan that I want to do. We're going to do current research. I think we'll just click that open. I open the research tree. You see when you start out you've got all this here. I think generally institution growth is good, but it's not high up. I think we'll go for max literacy, maybe monthly diplomats, and then purchase food. Construction speed would be nice. Maximum RGO size would be there. Certainly would like stability investment, which then giving us cultural tradition. Catholic pilgrims, monthly religious influence, not really. And then maybe we'll set institution growth here as well. So I think that's enough for the research. There's just and this comes back to what I was saying is that when you're first going to do a country, you do need to kind of think a little bit about what you actually want to do. Now, the next thing I want to do is a little bit more production is I want to change this. This is something that's very much overlooked. Now, in the Hungary campaign, we played infrastructure most unprofitable, but there's a little bit of a trick here, which I got from the video on values. Because if I come here, and then if we show you here, infrastructure most profitable, what this does is it pushes the progress in the values towards capital economy and communalism. But if you actually come up to here and look at equality, this actually gives a 0.1 push towards communalism. So what we're actually going to do is we're actually going to this is equal proportions available. So to begin with, we're going to use that. That's cost us a little bit of stability from that point of view. And then we come back to estates. There's one. I don't want to mess about with this too much. Ideally, I would like, if possible, to change this, but I don't think we don't have enough stability to do that, because there's one area where I do want to go on. Luckily, we've got the favorite one, militias, here. Now, as you can see here, this comes back to what I was saying during the value section. Communal lands does give nobles power, and it does move towards decentralization. So in the beginning of the game, this is okay. And if you watch early tutorials, they say get rid of this as fast as possible. But you can see it's going to cost us 44 stability to actually revoke the privilege. But we don't have that stability. And to be honest, it's not worth doing that. But one thing I do want to add is in here is urban development rights here, because what you see down here, one, it gives monthly development, and this comes back to what I was talking about, being able to push the sliders. It's actually more with some of these, it's more about the monthly progress here. So what we're going to get here is we're going to get this, because this is going to improve our development, and this is a very powerful privilege to give to the burghers, because you get that the actual monthly development is very small, but it's for the whole country for the rest of the game. So what we're going to get that, but above, if you look here, so you've got treasury rights here. This has got an initiative as well. And if you come up to, I think these are the ones, so you can see it's got land of commerce, progress towards the capital economy, minting threshold. So we've got another one here, control over monetary policy, wishes towards individualism. But I do want this one here. So we're going to take that. That's going to upset a few people, but that's tough luck. But I don't want to. Oh no, we haven't actually got rid of the stability. Just make that run, just to make sure. So we might be able to add something else as well. What else could we put in? Let me just see. We could put in. We've got clergy. Let's have a look at the clergy. No, that's the clergy. What we could put in is, again, if you look here, you see the monthly progress towards belligerent possible. And this is the one that I actually want. It says powerful diocese. The reason for that is that puts more clergies into your towns and cities. And what the clergy do is they add to literacy. So we're going to do that. And I think I want to do one more. I'm pausing because I'm actually trying to read my notes, and I've got terrible handwriting, which doesn't help matters very much. And I think if we come into here, where we got here, I can't see it. Maybe we've already got it. Let's have a look what we got here. Monetary fiefs, royal marriage rights, fortification, land rights. Okay, let's just have another look. It's to do with feudal, strong, no nobility, prince of nobility. What have we got there? Stability decay, minus 0.1. Progress towards aristocracy. Oh wow. Okay, we got noble patron of the arts. That gives us more progress towards innovation. So we could give them that. Yeah, I think what we will do is we will give them noble patronage towards the arts, because that would give us innovation, a little bit more innovation. I think I've probably worked that as far as I want to do it now. Well, one thing I've forgotten is education. So again, you need to pay attention to these top bars, inefficient minting, yeah. Oh, that's the next thing I want to do. I've got a feeling we might not actually unpause in this game. Right, so the next thing we're going to need to do is go in, find the economy, and of course what we want to do is automate all these. This isn't for new players. I think virtually all players now tend to actually automate their tax collection. What we're going to do is just go to the minting. We got inefficient minting. The reason it's saying inefficient minting comes down to the fact that we don't actually have access to the silver. Right, so the next thing we need to do is something that's quite common, and that is forts. And I think if we change to, yeah, we'll get rid of this fort, because we got the general rule that seems to be that what you do is you put the fort in the capital. I think what's this? You're a city. I think I'd like to defend the city. What are you? You're a castle there. Okay. So we got forts everywhere. I think we're going to take a chance. We're going to try and keep Portugal on the side. So what we'll do is we'll get rid of some of the forts up this line here and hope that they don't throw a wobbler. You can never know with the AI, but we are going to work hard to keep Portugal as an ally, so we can get rid of these forts there. We certainly don't need the second fort there. Don't need the one in the Salamanca as well. If somebody gets this far into our lands, then, well, we might have a problem. Maybe we'll keep that one just as insurance. This province is so far out in the middle of nowhere. I don't think it's even worth justifying defending it. Probably this. So that one's there. Leon, we've got coastal forts there. That's right. Let's just go back to the economy. And what we will do is turn down fort maintenance. That gives us a bit more money. So that's there. Now, the next thing I want to build up fairly quickly is legitimacy, because now legitimacy comes from port costs. We're going to push that up a smidge without draining too much money. Stability. We'll give a little bit of an age towards the actual that bit there. We're going to sort out the education here. Got that there. We got this, and I think if we keep clicking on this, we got another one here. I'm going to tend to fix more on admin, because you don't know who's actually going to end up as the king. Country action cooldown. I don't even know what that actually is. Ask for money. I don't recall asking for money. Possible cabinet actions. Right. So we've now got to here. Oh, we haven't appointed anyone to our navy. In the previous two series, I've had the generals and admirals on auto. Parliament, maybe I'll do that. It's working in the cabinet, so he can't go in there. He's working in the cabinet, so that just leaves this bod. So you're my admiral. We don't have many people in here. And by automation is if I come up over to here, what I'll do is we'll just go down the bottom and say auto replace general and admirals. I'm going to automatically close and open buildings. Also, production methods is automated. And the other thing we are going to do is we're going to automate trade. That should be, well, we can automate trade there actually, and the markets as well. Now, just because I've automated the trade on that side, you can get manual trading back by moving this slider back. At the moment we've got 19.9 trade capacity, and then the markets, I'm not exactly sure why you'd want to automate the markets. And while we're here, what you see now is that we've got two dominant markets, which is Burgos and Seville. We've also got a little bit of footprint in the Lisbon market, which is here, and this market that somehow they've sneaked across there, but we can fix that with our navy. And then we got the Barcelona market there, so we're getting a bit of intrusion from across here, from Aragon. So that is our markets. What I will do is we're going to get our navy out to about there. Just let them run. What I'm going to do now is just going to let the game run for a month, so that we can get our true balance. And what we can do here is tell this guy to patrol the seas. So they will seek to improve our maritime presence in this area. And what maritime presence is that by having a maritime presence in this area, what that will do is it will improve our, so you can see here we've got 50% maritime presence. The more maritime presence we've got, the more control we exert, which then improves our overall economy. So that again is something that we do need to look at. So right, I'm just going to let the game run for a month, because actually no, I'm going to pause the game, because now I'm going to get radical. Rivalry declared. Yeah, okay, we'll accept that. And this is where things could go wrong very, very quickly. What we're going to do is we're going to move our capital to Seville, like that. While that's actually running for the month, then I'll pause again. Now, the reason why I'm moving the capital to Seville, new market underway, this is something else I've noticed with the game. As announced the marriage of Leonor from Seville as an attempt to secure the future of their dynasty. One thing I have noticed, I've played a couple of test games looking at other countries, that with the 1.010 update, the game seems to be very enthusiastic about creating markets now. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but you can see we're actually making a fairly nice profit, though that's going to take a bit of a bash because we've got this in here. But now I'm going to talk about control and why I've moved the capital. See, what we've got up here is we've got the capital here. In fact, we're going to move our leader down to here as well. This is our starting location. You can see we get 100% control in the center, and we've also got a control spreading out across here. The trouble with this area is if I show you the topography, what you'll find is that this area is very heavily enclosed with mountains on two sides. Therefore, the options to expand and grow and exert control via proximity. In fact, if I show you the proximity to the capital, which is currently here, you can see that proximity is very, very difficult to expand. Where if we come down to Seville, I know you can't see it at the moment because we're here, but you've got a slight shadow up here. In fact, there's a river system. I don't know. Let me just see. I just want to look at something here. Map modes. Helps if I actually subscribe to the mod, doesn't it? Sorry about that. A bit of brain fade. Now, what happened with the 1.10 update is Paradox actually removed the river map. Now, if we zoom in really, really careful, you'll see that there's a river running out here. I've got no idea what it actually is called. And this is going to be a very powerful way of actually developing our economy out this way through this area here. Simply because what we're going to be doing is, because we're going to be developing this area as once our capital's been established. Actually, I'm just going to let the game run. Actually, I don't know why I've got it on pause. We've got the money to afford it. And I can't really build anything until we've moved the capital because we don't really want to develop stuff up here. But you can also see here with the capital in this area that there's a river that runs this way. Now, one of the biggest changes is that when you got, in fact, we'll just do it here very, very quickly. If I show you the proximity control, if we come proximity, if I show you here now, this is the downstream version. And what you'll see, if you look at this, you'll see that there's a proximity cost going downstream, which makes the control grow in that way. Now, with the 1.010 update, it has the same effect upstream. So if you can have a capital on either on the coast or on a river if they're inland, that really affects the ability of this capital to become a more profitable area, because now there isn't the penalty of going upstream. If hopefully that makes sense. And what it effectively means is that until the late game, you don't need to build roads. Any province that gets a benefit from an upstream like here. In fact, I don't know how far it go. I haven't actually tried this. So that's upstream. That's upstream. Wow. Okay, it looks like things are worn out off there. So you can see how much range you can get from there. But back to what I was showing with the river, that this river goes up here. So what we should be able to do is get a very powerful band of growing up through this area here as our economy grows. Actually, I think I'm going to run up 3, I think. I'm generally ignoring things at the moment because there's not much point in us doing anything. Because at the moment we don't really have anything to develop. So I've moved the capital to Seville. As I say, I don't want to start developing the buildings until we've got this area here running. What I will do, it says inefficient minting. Looks like the game is actually kind of jumping the gun here because it's building a granary here. What I might do is I'll take advantage, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a second scriptorium in there. Right, we've got a Duchy of Aquitaine. Why is the Duchy of Aquitaine making us a rival? I would say at the moment our money's dropped right down now to 18 because we are basically destroying our capital at the moment. So this will hopefully be over quickly. This is the 100 Years' War. I'm hoping that is going to distract our friends over there. What I am going to do now is we got the thing here. We're going to come in here, open diplomatic action, and what we're going to do is now build a spy network in Granada, because that's going to allow us to build a casus belli here. In fact, what I wouldn't mind doing here is actually go to the military, army builder, navy build ships. I wouldn't mind building some more ships while we're at it at the moment. Traditional galleys. We'll build a galley there. Actually, I think the easiest way to do this actually is come here, navies, build ships. Got some crevalles. We should be able to just build ships here. Maybe we'll build a ship over here as well while we're at it. I know I'm making a ham fist out of this, but okay, a holy person has arrived. It says, "Welcome the priest. We are not ruled by the church." See, this is going to move us towards humanist. This is where you've got to start paying attention. Truthfully, it's going to move 10 towards being humanist. Welcome the priest. Let's have a look at our values. So at the moment we're a spiritualist. So what this will do, if we welcome the priest, we will get religious influence. It says moves towards humanist, towards spiritualist. Question is, do we want the spiritualist or the stability? I think at the moment we can afford to lose that a little bit because it won't change the slider there, and this at the moment is moving. Well, we might have pushed that back a bit. Might have made a mistake there. Now there's another thing that I do want to do, which I have forgotten all about. Although at the moment, so we're going to build up our navies as well, and we're going to build up this area here. We could probably build a couple of navies up here, but I don't want to blow all my money. In fact, actually, what we will do is build a navy up there. What we got here? Air can have a better education. I would really like to lay out an expensive education, but I don't really want to blow all that money because we're going to need it. Possible. Oh, we haven't done cabinet actions. Pause. I ran off my script. What I want to do is, where is it? Increase control in Seville. We need to increase control in Seville, and I think encourage migration, convert Pollock. Province rebel crackdown. I think at the moment we're to stabilize the country while we're doing this, and it looks like we've now got a reward. It says we have a burst of administrative thought, efficiency of our cabinet 10%. Okay, any cabinet member has a head of cabinet. What we got here is managed to complete this task. Enact government reforms. Okay, thank you. 1 year, we're now a functional government for 1 year. K modifier. Now got a functional government, so we got plus 10 crown power. That's very thing there. It says here gains 5 administrative ability. Our steward reports that. So he's just got 5 administrative ability. He's just got 5. Wow. And we change social towards initiative. Wow, we'll certainly take that. Increase cabinet efficiency. Okay, so this is the task that we're now working on. So if we come into here, you can see wow. So we've literally blasted all through this lot straight away. And what we've now got to do is get to 80 legitimacy, which is up here. But at the same time, we need to build up our stability so that when we get that, we can then also get the one below it straight away. So that is where we are. Just say we're just going to hang on to the money for the moment for what we're actually doing. Guild before country. When an aristocrat warned us the secret societies are supposedly infiltrating Castilian politics, we should choose to listen. They predicted they might very well pay with their lives. The conspiracy changed against us. It's quite sure it's happened, but one of our close advisors has made some very dubious decisions lately. Don't really want to lose legitimate. That takes away 10 prestige. Now, prestige is very difficult to get hold of. So we're just going to have to sacrifice a little bit of that stability, but we're going to be careful. We can't afford to go negative. We're going to come in here. Just going to get the game run. Just going to let the game run. Just keep it running because I'm just going to need to build the capital first. Actually, while we're running, let's have a look at how our states have come. So we've now got 26% crown authority, which means that we are now in the position where we can actually. So what that means is that we are in a position where we're actually over that. 25% is the magic number, because if you get over 25%, you've got a level of satisfaction. So that is the magic number. Ships need not repairing yet. We can work on that. I just want to get that last percentage. Just give the game a bit of a nudge. We have to donate some money. It's not our problem. Donate the money just to keep them happy. And right, so we've now got a new capital. Pause. Slow down. So that's radical step number 1 finished. Now we're going to do radical step number 2. Because what's going to happen now, because the game doesn't transition immediately. So what you've got here is we've got the cabinet, which I should have had working on in this area from the get-go. So what we need to do now is get Seville up to here. If we go to infrastructure, you see that Seville, the maximum control in Seville will get to 50% eventually. I think that we've got to let the game roll over. Let me just let the game roll over. And what you'll see is that maximum control will slowly build up over time, but we need to push it. But of course, what will happen now is that this will now degrade. So if we go to what was our old capital, you'll see that this has now been dropped to 31%. But this is where I'm going to try and get a little bit creative. I want to emphasize, I'm not recommending that you do this because I'm not 100% sure that it's actually going to work, because what we're actually going to do is we're actually going to create a custom subject here based on here. And we're actually going to make it into a Overlord 30%. Strength of impact on the on Overlord is 50%. Do not cancel. What is strength of impact? I think we'll make it into a fiefdom. And what I'm done now, I actually want. Okay, I'll do it the other way. I think I can do it if I come here. Go to diplomatic options. I think it's subject actions. And what I want to do is cede a province. And what I want to do is give him this province as well. So effectively what we've done now, just leave the game on pause. Just leave the game on pause. Is I've now created a fiefdom over where the previous capital was, and if I come to control now, you can see that we can't see it. But if we click on here now, what that will mean is that if we come to here, and I show you here that this will not lose their control, because they are now actually a fiefdom. In fact, you can see 94%. So effectively what I've done now, this, as I say, I want to emphasize that this is purely theoretical. Yeah, 83.98%. This is purely theoretical, but what it should do is create us a profitable area in this market here, which will mean that the Burgos market, which is over here, will have more capability. Now the actual Burgos is over here, but what I'm also thinking of doing after the dust is settled, is probably the polite way of doing it, is to actually move the market to this. But my main concern with that is that, actually, if I just let the game run for a little bit, we go to markets now, and what you see is we go into the Burgos market. You see at the moment where the Crown of Castile has still got control. What I'm not sure if any of you actually know the answer to this is, if I move the market center to there, will this fiefdom actually have more control over the market than what I've got? That's the question that needs to be worked on, if that's to make sense. Anyway, I think this is where I'm going to leave it, because I've covered a lot of ground. Apologies if I've fried your brain. And what I need to do now is stop and think a little bit about how we're actually going to develop the economy. Because if I show you here, what we've got now is we've got Seville here, which actually produces olives, which is going to be a fairly good market maker, actually, I think, is it? So let's just have a quick look at this. Yes, we've got a pretty good export market there. We've got a pretty reasonable price. I don't think olives are that common on the map, so I think maybe we'll get the ball rolling by actually building up that there. But we've also got silver up here, so we can always do the silver as well. The other thing that is Seville actually built. So you can see we got olives coming up this way as well. So we got lots, so we could almost control the olive market here. Lumber is something else that we're going to need to improve. Oh, because what we're going to need to do is actually start to get control of our construction materials. So that's something else that we're going to need to consider. But of course, one thing, the price of moving the capital is the fact that we've actually, let's build a slave market, is the fact that we're going to have a loss of income. So we're going to have to manage the economy very, very carefully for a little while, just to ensure that we, until we get everything sorted out. Anyway, this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you found it interesting. And until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.